Stay tuned tonight because later on the show I'll be talking to a group of people that makes films for absolutely no reason whatsoever. Films that look a little bit like this.
A fan film is any film that's been made because someone has been inspired by a particular movie. It doesn't have to be original, and it can be short or long. If that is the way that someone can get into filmmaking, then that's a really good thing.
We know technology is transforming what individuals can do and creating a whole new art form. If that isn't one of the most important cultural stories that you can report on, I don't know what is.
Brothers Darren and Mark Scales left the cinema so excited by films like Ghostbusters and the Indiana Jones movies that they decided to copy them using a camcorder that their mum hired for the week. The initial results were awful, but they stuck at it, and now they're coming up with really incredible stuff.
Indeed, the latest is The Emperor's New Clones.
The Emperor's New Clones.
The Emperor's New Clones.
1, 2, 3!
This is by far the largest film we've ever made. We've got 7 full-size sets. We've spent more money on this than any other film we've made, over £3,000.
時刻は4時51分。毎週金曜日は世界各国の話題をお伝えするワールドリポートです。Red Farm
It is a big challenge. We're an amateur film company. We've had 65 costumes to make. Everything's been made from scratch.
It looked like the opening shots from 1977. I was 11 years old again.
They had a great story to tell. The family production team.
They'd pull their own money in. They'd get all their friends, neighbours, families to help.
It just made it something that Sky had to tell.
Do a lot of set building, set designing, so in charge of a team of sort of hard-working souls up to the early hours of the morning and getting up again at the crack of dawn, building everything you see in the village which wasn't already here.
It's a film with proper production values, with a proper script, with proper jokes, with proper special effects, with proper editing. For £3,000, which is what they spent on their film, all I've got was probably that table.
Now, they started as a family film company making spoofs of Hollywood blockbusters, but now Backyard Productions are embarking on their biggest production yet. Their pantomime film Cinders has been partly filmed at Pinewood Studios.
We've made spoof films in the past, sort of fan films, Star Wars films, that sort of thing. And we decided that we were going to sort of branch out and try something a little bit new.
Think of what you're doing, Daddy!
Oh, I am.
I can't stay. I have to leave.
Why?
I'm sorry. I must go.
You're thrilled. It's lovely to have anybody come into things like this, isn't it?
Yes, Backyard Productions have been making spoof versions for almost 20 years, but they're now working on their first original script.
The film's called The Drift.
This is all highly classified.
We've learnt a lot from the production that we did with Star Wars, and all that time we've been introducing more and more people into filmmaking, and now we're ready to make our first original feature film.
For me, it's great because to see such a big scale thing on such a low budget is really good in terms of experience.
So whether they've made films or not in the past doesn't really matter. It's all about energy and enthusiasm.
Now that is one mean-looking piece of space junk.
This drift is a graveyard.
Affectionately referred to as the executive bully within Backyard Productions.
Our next guest this afternoon is Darren Scales. He's producer, director and co-founder of Backyard Productions.
Hello there. The biggest thrill for me is bringing all these people together. Not just people that I know, but also people who have never been involved in filmmaking. It's so great to see everyone contributing. Everyone has a purpose. Everyone is doing something. Everyone feels useful. And that's the biggest thrill for me.
It went down an absolute storm on the show. Started my relationship off with Backyard Productions, who are absolutely one of the most interesting companies in this country.
Backyard Productions I can keep in the back of my contacts book because they're always up to something new and something good.
Hollywood, eat your heart out.
Well, hi, my name is Darren Scales, and I'm known as the executive bully of Backyard Productions. And we've been making movies, spoof movies to start with, since about sort of 1992-93. mostly spoofs, and we learn a lot of our techniques through making movies in homage to all our heroes, everything from Star Wars to Indiana Jones to Jurassic Park and Batman. Well, so we've been making movies for quite a number of years now, and what we wanted to do was to try something original, something new, and we'd always liked science fiction. That had been our favourite type of genre. I loved Star Wars when I was a child, Battlestar Galactica, Star Trek, Doctor Who, all that stuff. Really, really enjoyed it. And I've been toying with this idea of this new universe that I wanted to create, this universe I called a Starlight universe. But it was huge. I mean, the ideas I had were massive about what these wondrous starlight crystals could do, faster than light, and you can connect with them and do wondrous things. So it was such a massive project. What we decided to do was to take one part of that world, and we created a movie called The Drift. The Drift is about a small salvage crew that go into space, and their job is to collect bits of salvage, broken parts, computer data, fuel rods and stuff, to bring back and restore humanity who is in a bit of a dire strait. And they go to these things called drifts, and the drift is basically a graveyard in space. It's where you find these big spaceships that have collided and crashed, and it's been some years since anybody's been on these drifts, 20 years or so. So when they go on these drifts and everybody's dead, it's pretty morbid and horrible, but they go in there and do their job. But they go to this one drift where they're not dead. They're very much alive and very hungry. So as salvage turns to survival, other secrets are revealed as to how the drift came about, the secret of the starlight crystals, and one of the crew has a very terrifying and hidden agenda. So we made the film for a very small budget of £5,000, and that is kind of typical of all of our productions. We are able to make these movies so cheaply, although still £5,000 obviously is a lot of money compared to Star Trek or Star Wars, $150–200 million. £5,000 I think would barely do the credit roll of one of those films. But the way we are able to do it so cheaply, first and foremost, is because we work with volunteers. Every one of our movies has been a voluntary-based production, finding like-minded individuals, people who not only like making movies but love the type of movies that we like to do, and that typically is sort of, to say, the science fiction, adventure type films. And the other thing that enables us to make these films for very little money is the fact that we raise money for charity. And the way that works is that lots of companies, organisations, people like to get involved, because whilst we make the movie for £5,000 or so and we never get that money back, every time we sell one of our films, when we are able to do so, all that money goes to charity. So it's kind of a win-win. I get to make a movie for £5,000 and we raise money for charity. But there's another win as well with the way that we do our business, because all the people that get involved, particularly with The Drift, have been volunteers from the student background, student filmmakers, semi-professional filmmakers, who have either cut their teeth or want to cut their teeth onto a production. But with The Drift, for example, it's very, very big. Like our Indiana Jones spoof movie called Doom Raiders, which we shot in 2002, that had a cast and crew of about 150 people, as did The Drift, was around 100 people or so. Now that wasn't 100 people every day, that was people who were jumping in and jumping out of the production. But the great thing for them was they were able to get involved in a huge production. The sets on The Drift, for example, were massive. The Deliverance, the main spaceship that they arrive and leave in, or those that are left anyway, that was around about 25-foot long set. It was 4.5 meters high, 3 meters wide. It was huge on 3 levels. I mean, the whole set was so high; it was literally floor to ceiling. And we were able to build this massive set, and we had 3 units of cameras on there, and they all had to be coordinated, and we had to have health and safety. We had pyrotechnics and smoke, and we had green screen and light in the green screen. So for these volunteers, it was a great experience, because they were getting involved in a project that was absolutely massive, unlike perhaps some of the smaller ones they may have done in a team of 3, which is where we started. We started making our films in the backyard, which is where backyard productions came from, and we just progressed, self-taught all the way through. And the drift, I think, is kind of the culmination of 20 years of hard work, learning from our mistakes, making plenty more mistakes during the production and learning from them as well. And now we've got an original 100-minute feature-length movie set in space. Okay, so this is one of the most exciting parts of the movie. This is where they fly into the drift for the first time. And you can see, for example, this shot here. If I just... you've got CGI shots working in here, you've got live action, you've got graphics. So for example, that graphic there on the screen, that was actually done at the time. You know, it was there live. We had to get that graphic sorted out before we've shot to make sure that it worked and it's interactive. If you watch, he'll bang it in a minute. It was like a gag that the things weren't working properly. The little lights in there, it's all been added on in post-production. And this is, so here for example, this is a CGI shot here. So you've got Travis, he's live action as you can see there, but all this is CGI'd. But in order to make that work, we actually had to build a harpoon gun. You can see the spikes just here. We actually had to build that full size so that we could get all the references correct in order to make it CGI. So it's pretty hard work. So again, you've got the chroma key, blue screen mixing with the CGI. And here he goes. So looking at that. You know, stuff like that. All that had to be, planned, in advance. And then this shot here, for example. So you've got the live action here. You've got a window. You've got a head-up display on top of there. There's a window in the back there with CGI behind him as well, which has to match. And you see it's slightly out of focus, and it has to be because he's slightly out of focus. And these are all the things you have to sort of think about for a shot that lasts barely a second on the screen. And you times that by 1,300 shots, which is how many were in the movie. And then, of course, the sound effects as well going on there. There's a lovely bit here with the engines. Now, I actually got those sound effects from an RAF Typhoon. I went on an exercise with the RAF Reserves, and I managed to spend a morning on the runway. Well, not obviously on the runway, but nearby, and captured the sound of the Typhoons taking off. And I was able to use that sound in the movie here. This is quite an interesting shot because you've got Ace, who's the pilot. So again, another window, head-up display. And then out here, you've got the cloud of the drift, and then all these objects. There are over 35,000 objects like this in space, in the setup, which a lot of them are very similar, but the computer still has to work out where they all are and where they're going, and to have a forward motion. And also, the head-up display has to match the motion of the debris. So you've got to work all that out as well. Pretty intense. This scene is where they get into the drift for the first time. This is Reg, and what he's actually wearing is his spacesuit. He's got his lights and all the rest of it. But actually, he's actually wearing a bin. This is a bin lid. You can just see at the top there, and it's a bin. You throw the rubbish in. That's where the rubbish would go, on his face. But we put some plastic across there, and when we animate that, you can see how. And another bin here as well, obviously. Or hopefully not, obviously. And this is now inside the drift. So you've got the two spacemen there. They've got their bits of kit. Got lights are very good. You put lights all over stuff, and it's instantly science fiction. So that really works. These are all carpet tubes from. Got them from Carpetright in Lincoln. We went down every Saturday for about 6 weeks in a row, and just basically took all their cardboard rolls. They're letters, obviously, which is great, and then we got them recycled at the end. And they're just bits of tube and wiring and foam and more carpet tubes there. And then you just light it, add a bit of smoke. And up here, for example, on the right here, these are all like yogurt pots and tubes and egg boxes, cereal packets, anything. And you stick it all on a flat plate and spray it. And now you've just got some random sci-fi looking rough surface. And that's how that kind of works.
What sort of cargo she's carrying? The valuable sort, hopefully.
We dubbed all the dialogue in post because they're talking on radios to give that feel. But you can see how you put all those elements together, and you've got quite a convincing look and feel.
at that display on Deliverance, I committed.
So that's actually that shot there. This is one of the other cameras we use. So this is basically like we inspired from Aliens. So you can see it says Reg. So we're looking from Reg's point of view, and that's his camera going on there, and you've got all the details at the bottom there. And it gives another sort of sci-fi feel to what's going on. But we also used the spacesuits outside as well. So this is a sequence where one of the other characters is sitting outside, looking out into the drift. And he's actually, I think he's sitting on the spaceship outside. There he is. So we had to film that. That whole sequence is chroma keyed. So he was sitting on a green box with green behind him, and then we put him into the sequence with this CGI ship here. Not quite sure how we decided that he could sit down because he could. We didn't want to discuss the gravity situation. We thought, well, let's have some fun. And then we unfold the wing there for him to have a look at, and had fun doing it. So that was that one. And shots like this, you got the edge of the wing in the foreground, live action, and then CGI again behind him. That's different layers of CGI, and then lighting as well to make it match up. And it's all about the planning, getting it ready. This is another sequence in the movie where he's on a cable. He's climbing down the cable to get back to the spaceship. And we had a bit of fun with this. So here he's sort of just floating in space. And then he actually ends up having a fight on the line as well. Which, again, this was shot at the University of Lincoln. So now you've got two people working on a blue screen trying to look like they're floating, changing the angles. And that camera's moving around all the time, and all that background has to track with that motion. So we had to track all that, and then put the sound effects on and these sparks, which obviously weren't real, to make it work in the sequence. So, and there's and off it goes.